3 days ago, Truman Zanotto, the grand head of the Psychonauts, was kidnapped. Yesterday, with my help, the Psychonauts rescued Truman from the underwater lair of Dr. Lobato. But trust me, there's no way Lobato is working alone.
Hello, I'm Jordan Midler and you're watching VGC's video review of Psychonauts 2. The footage in this review was captured from an Xbox Series X. Psychonauts 2 is one of the most relentlessly inventive games we've ever played. It's hard to remember another game that is so consistent in its ability to impress us, to make us laugh, and to make us cry. While the combat feels somewhat dated and the various psychic abilities can be awkward to use, this doesn't take away from an excellent story and the most creative collection of platforming levels in recent memory. Psychonauts 2 begins following the VR title Rhombus of Ruin. For those who didn't play either of the previous games, the game begins with a very thorough catch-up of the story. This isn't just helpful, it's essential, as much of Psychonauts 2's story relies on an understanding of the previous games. It manages to do what few sequels made well after the original can. It incorporates and references the first game without it feeling like pointless nostalgia. The sequel picks up as Raz and the gang arrive back at headquarters, having rescued the leader of the cerebrally inclined spy organisation, the Psychonauts. Raz has little time to enjoy his new role as an intern to the Psychonauts when reports emerge of the return of Maligula, a demonic threat that flooded Raz's homeland and tore the original Psychonauts apart. Raz must then reunite the original Psychonauts by travelling into their mind and convincing them to join his cause, while at the same time battling over what it means to be a Psychonaut, and the inherent power that comes with the ability to invade someone's most personal thoughts with or without their consent.
You're right. I knew it was wrong the second I did it. I'm ashamed of myself. I violated your trust and very idea of what it means to be a Psychonaut. I guess I'm not ready for this after all.
Psychonauts 2 is a platformer, with each level usually requiring one of Raz's psychic abilities to traverse. Powers from the first game such as levitation, psybeam and telekinesis return, as well as some new powers that freshen up levels. The problem solving in the game is fairly straightforward, however certain collectibles are hidden behind challenging platforming sequences, something we would like to have seen more of. Raz has 8 powers, 4 of which can be assigned to the shoulder buttons at any one time, which can be frustrating when platforming sequences suddenly lead to a combat area in which your platforming powers are fairly useless. This leads to jumping into the menu and reassigning your abilities. The combat itself is fine, but it definitely feels like the most dated element of the package. There are several boss fights in the game which, while visually stunning and incredibly creative, poor checkpointing and seemingly unblockable attacks meant we often found ourselves frustrated rather than thrilled. The actual objectives in each level have a great variety. For example, in one section that's styled after a cooking competition, you need to use your telekinesis to grill, puree and boil various sentient foods for the approval of the judges. While the main missions may take anywhere from 10 to 15 hours, the Mother Lobe, the Psychonauts HQ, and the surrounding areas are full of side quests and character moments that could be easily missed if not sought out. It's in these side quests that a few of the new characters that feel somewhat sidelined in the course of the main story get their time to shine. Speaking of characters, Psychonauts 2's voice cast provides excellent performances all around. Richard Horvitz, who you may know from Invader Zim and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, returns as Raz and is joined by the likes of Jack Black, who steals the show during his portion of the game. Convincing performances were essential because, like the original, Psychonauts 2 deals with heavy subject matter. Despite the large amounts of humour in the game, themes of anxiety, depression and other mental struggles are handled with immense care. While these elements will obviously resonate differently with each person, we felt that they were approached in a way that gave them the prominence necessary without delving into the cliches that are so common when video games attempt to tackle mental health issues. When Psychonauts released on the original Xbox, its incredibly strong art style and surrealist aesthetic allowed for it to shine on a console whose hardware limitations have left many of its other titles looking extremely dated. With Psychonauts 2, Double Fine have created a game that is so visually spectacular, it feels like it was waiting for this generation of hardware. At times it feels like you're playing through a game designed by Terry Gilliam. This isn't weird for the sake of being weird, each level feels incredibly precisely designed, an allegorical climbing frame for each of the mental battles that Raz has to resolve. One level in the middle of the game is so spectacular that we had to stop and take it all in multiple times. Most games don't have one level nearly as interesting, impressive or memorable as Psychonauts 2's slowest moments. Psychonauts 2 feels like a game that has been thought about for 15 years. There's simply no other way that the sheer magnitude of creativity, wit and passion in this game could be achieved. If you were to make a list of the 10 most visually impressive levels in gaming history, there's a strong case for Psychonauts 2 taking up half that list. Beyond the excellent animation and colourful, vibrant world, it's the inventiveness of the levels you platform through that is so impressive. It makes us wonder how one team possibly came up with all of them. While the combat and some of the psychic abilities can be frustrating at times, it's impossible to dwell on those issues for too long while you're surfing a giant piece of mail or floating through an LSD-infused music festival. It's always a risk creating a sequel to a cult classic so long after the original, but in Psychonauts 2, Double Fine haven't only made a game that respects the original and takes the characters to new heights, they've set themselves, and new owners Microsoft, up with a platforming franchise that can thrive for years to come.